So this is Eva Clark of Healing Multiple Sclerosis, and today we're going to really look at multiple sclerosis. One of my teachers once said that, it's actually Richard Bandler, which is one of the fathers of NLP. He would invite the practitioners of NLP. He would say, spend 80% of your time with your client, if you have to, figuring out what the real problem is, and then just 20% resolving. Because he says, if you spend enough time understanding what's going on, then the solution is right there. So today, what we're going to do is really look at what is multiple sclerosis and really expand our understanding of it. Because the more we understand what's going on, the more we'll know how to solve it, right? If we kind of just have an inkling, all we're doing is listening to Facebooks and, and newsletters and internet, which is saying, try this, try this, try that. And we're just like, throwing things at it rather than going, okay, this is what I'm understanding it is. So this is what I need to do about it. Steve Jobs also said something very similar. He goes, when you really define the problem correctly, you almost already have the solution. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at how different medical models understand the cause of disease, and in specific, the cause of multiple sclerosis, so that that can give us more information to then design our treatment protocol, what we're going to each do individually to help ourselves. And that will be what we do in the second part. So this first part will be really opening the lens. And the second part of this presentation will then be looking at how to design what we're going to do to work with MS. So what is our current understanding of multiple sclerosis? Does anybody want to just kind of throw out, what do you know about it? What have you understood is multiple sclerosis?
I think of it as the body, for whatever reason, and I think it often is during a time in one's life when a lot's going on, or we aren't taking as good care of ourselves as we might, or stressed, or lack of sleep, or who really knows. I think for some people it is a viral illness, but for whatever reason, we have this propensity to have our autoimmune issue be that we get inflamed and we start producing extra antibodies, and the antibodies attack our myelin. And so I think it does start as an autoimmune inflammatory disease.
Mm-hmm.
That's my...
Yeah. Multiple sclerosis is really interesting. If you think about it, it doesn't have the profile of what we'd say is someone sick. It's like when you get diagnosed, you're usually between the ages of 20 and 40. First world countries, the northern gradient, so it's the most industrial area of first world countries, and women. The etiology, so the cause, is unknown. Anytime you look on internet, what is the cause of MS? It is unknown. Interesting, it is not genetic. While other diseases can have, for example, certain cancers, you have a 30% chance of getting it. When it comes to MS, if you have a family member that has it, you only have 1 to 5% higher chance of getting it than the general population. So medical science understands that there is environmental factors, but it's not really clear which. There's actually, the theory is that there's actually not one MS, but there's 2 MS diseases. Symptom origins are also, so this is the thing. Brain diseases which initiate from the gray matter in our brains do not have the same symptoms as MS, which in theory is also having, affected in those same areas of the brain. So there's not a direct correlation between lesions, which is what we all hear about with MS, and the symptoms that are present. I remember John, when I first started working with MS, John Gundesgaard, it was like the first thing he told me. He said, Eva, I want you to know that lesions do not correlate with symptoms. He goes, I have 15 of them and I only have problems in my, in my legs, and my best friend only has 3 and he's almost quadriplegic. He goes, so don't let yourself get caught up in that, in the biology. And I thought, oh, dang, this is going to be interesting, So another thing that's not understood currently is why some people remit. So they have the symptoms and then all of a sudden they don't, and others progress. Even it's not as easy as we think to diagnose. MRI is something that is used often. However, only 90% of those diagnosed with MS have visible lesions detectable in an MRI. 10% do not. And so doctors actually have to do different tests to make sure that it's not another disease first. And if they've tested and it's not none of those, and they see activity in the central nervous system, antibodies, then they'll diagnose you, you've got MS. As Maria said, what's happening in the body? All we understand about multiple sclerosis is T cells, which is part of your immune system, get activated. Those T cells break through the blood-brain barrier, which is they're not supposed to go there. They break through, go into the central nervous system and attack. They damage the myelin sheaths, and that's why we get the myelin scarring, and they damage the underlying axons. And that seemingly is what leads to disability. But as I said, there isn't a direct correlation. It is unknown what triggers those T cells. That's what we currently know. So let's really get into, we're going to look, as I said, 4 medical models specifically that have some weight on them. We're not looking at the latest fad, but we're really going to look at some models that have research behind them and see how do they understand disease and how do they understand MS. So the first model, called the Biomedical Model, is also called allopathic medicine, Western medicine, mainstream medicine, even orthodox medicine. It's what you get when you go to your standard hospital or healthcare center. In biomedical medicine, physical disease is thought to have a physical cause and a physical cure. Specifically, if you study what the lens, how the model sees disease, disease is caused by mechanical, hormonal, and genetic malfunctions in the body. Disease is a deviation of normal biological measurements. What that means is, how when you go to your doctor and you don't feel good, what is the first thing they do? They start giving you all these tests. They want blood, they want urine, they want x-rays. And what they're looking for is deviations. They're looking for, is there more white cells than there needs to be? How is the hormones? Do you have more estrogen? What's going on there? Because for this medical model, those deviations is what creates the disease. And the correction of those deviations is through pharmacology and surgery. Biomedicine views the body as a machine, disease as the consequence of the breakdown of machine. And the doctor's task as repairing that machine. So if that's the lens you understand for MS, what you're going to look for is those physical, deviations, right? What's going on that shouldn't be going on physically? And what you'll find is a lot of activity in the immune system and overactivity in the immune system. You find that the macrophages in the immune system have activated those T cells that we talked about and attack the myelin. You'll find that they are breaking the blood-brain barrier when they shouldn't, and they're destroying these sheaths and the axons. Also, in biomedicine, you'll find that it's not genetic. There isn't a correlation. Yet, as we've already mentioned, it's not known what in the environment causes this. Why at 20? Why at 40 years old, right? What triggers this? How do you diagnose? As all biomedical, you're looking for those abnormalities, those deviations. And so what biomedicine will do is check, is there antibodies in that central nervous system where they're not supposed to be there? And they'll look at the visible MRIs to find lesions. In biomedicine, there is no cure to MS. Instead, the interventions focus on suppressing the action of the immune system to avoid causing further damage. That's why when you're looking at disease-modifying MS drugs, you'll find that what they're targeting is a decrease of exacerbation. And you'll find that they're trying to slow down the progression. That's their target. MindBody Medicine. This model has at least 60 years. There's a lot of research in this model. What this model does is biomedicine has been around for about 400 years. It's actually, the principles of biomedicine were defined by Galileo, by Newton, and by Descartes. MindBody Medicine has come in the last 60 years, maybe 70 years, and they have brought the mind back into the body. There's no longer that split that we've had. So MindBody Medicine knows that though disease is biochemical in nature, so what we're seeing is a problem in the body, the cause of that disease is bio, psycho, and social. So MindBody Medicine understands that there's biological factors, maybe there's viruses, maybe there's toxins, maybe it's something else, but there's also psychological and social factors. Emotions and stress are now included in the cause, and we have biological proof of how emotions and stress interferes with our physical health. One of the main sciences in mind-body medicine that you can find a lot of research is called psychoneuroimmunology. And they've actually shown the molecular basis of how our emotions are linked to disease, as well as epigenetics. If you guys have heard that, that's actually a new biology. Epigenetics also demonstrate how thoughts and emotions interact with our cells and activate and deactivate DNA. So how does MindBody Medicine see MS? I'm going to read this to you. This is from a paper. This is why I was motivated to do this. I wrote a paper for a class I was taking on consciousness medicine, and we had to compare several medical models. So from my paper, I wrote about how MindBody Medicine and these other ones sees MS. In MindBody Medicine, there are psychosocial assessments. So there are, studies made which show that people diagnosed with MS have more negative emotions, more anxiety, more depression, more obsession, more phobias and tense interpersonal relationships as compared to the general population. It is significant in the studies. They can see there is a difference. Also, those diagnosed have twice as much alexithymia. Alexithymia is actually the repression of feelings. People who can express what they're feeling, or even having problems with feeling their own emotions. It's like, anyone here ever swallow their emotions or ignore it? Yes, you're an expert, right? So that's what the studies have found, that those diagnosed have twice as much alexithymia, which is swallowing your emotions, not being able to express them, or not even be able to put them into words. It's like everything's anxiety instead of, okay, well, this is really what's happening. My emotions are this. Also, they have double the amount of childhood traumatic incidents. When we think about trauma, it doesn't just have to be these huge, well, I don't have these big traumas, but if your parents were not available, if your mom was working since the age of when you were 3 months old, if you have an alcoholic, father, or a lot of anger in the house, or very repressed emotions, all those things create a lot of childhood trauma. And there is double the amount of childhood traumatic incidents in MS as compared to the general population. So we're seeing, wait a minute, right? Emotions and stress do contribute in the case of MS, and you can actually see it in the studies. Additionally, this is really interesting. So I want you guys to think about this. Stressful life events precede, so it comes before, 85 to 90% of relapses. Stressful life events precede 85 to 90% of relapses. So a relapse doesn't just happen for the majority of cases. Also, 20 to 49% of a stressful life event will be followed by a relapse. Interesting enough, and this is it's almost like what we just talked about steroids. Remember, really, really, really high stress actually decreases relapse. It's the moderate stressful life events that increases the amount of relapses. So if you are in a war, if you are in the middle of a divorce, it actually decreases relapses. But moderate stress, a lot of deadlines at work, thinking you're going to fail a class, but you're just there. Am I going to fail it? But I'm not going to fail it. It's like after the divorce, right? After you've left that relationship and you're trying to figure things out. That's when you're most susceptible to a relapse. Now, what has been also proven is that social support, distractions, and positive coping mechanisms lower the effect of these stressful life events and thus reduce, and there's a correlation, it's direct, reduce the stressors and the myelin lesions. So having that social support, having distractions, and learning positive coping mechanisms will actually reduce the effects of being stressed. So through the mind-body medicine lens, stress is significant in the cause of MS. We cannot ignore it. It's a big piece. And thus, in your treatment, you need to include stress management. You need to include treatments that address trauma and childhood stuff that is unresolved, and you have conflicts with a mother still. Those things need to be addressed. And you need to learn, like the breath work we've mentioned today and other coping strategies, and increase your social support. So having groups like this where you can share things and feel like you're being heard and understood. This accompanied by those biological interventions, right? But they include, when in mind-body medicine, not only pharmacology, but also lifestyle, right? Diet and exercise and herbs, etc. So you're starting to see how we're starting to expand and get more information of what could be causing your MS?
This is resonating. A lot of this is really resonating with work I'm doing, like healing childhood trauma, or just reparenting myself, my inner child, with a parent that is available.
Yes. Now let's go into other models that we might not be familiar with. Tibetan medicine is a complete medical system. There are hospitals of Tibetan medicine. It is still being used today in Tibet and in China. In Tibetan medicine, everything in life is energy. Everything in life is energy. This is, quantum physics would agree with them. In the basic principles of healing in Tibetan medicine is to rebalance the three primary energies, which are also called humors. These humors are called, I'm going to really screw up these words, but Erlung, which is wind, Mkrispa, which is bile, and Bajim, which is phlegm. So there's three energies. When these energies are balanced, we are healthy. When these energies are out of balance, we become sick. Now, interesting enough, things that imbalance these energies are mental and physical factors. However, not to the same degree. When we're thinking of long-term disease, such as MS, the main factor is within the mind. Short-term causes of our body getting sick is physical. So those short-term are treated with diet and lifestyle. Also seasons, right? Different seasons, your body is stronger or weaker. And then Tibetan medicine also deals with spirit possession. There's a spiritual component to Tibetan medicine. But long-term causes are mental. And what these three energies are related to what Tibetan medicine calls three mental poisons: desire, anger, and closed-mindedness. So I wanted to read a little bit about these three. I don't have it here on the PowerPoint. I will share my paper. But I want you to read these to see, do any of these correspond to how I am in the world? Our lung, which is the wind energy, when it is imbalanced, it is related to greed, to unhealthy attachment, codependence would be part of this, and desire. So for example, if one is not content with one's life, if one is always overthinking, if one is worried about the future, constantly anxious, craving what they do not have, fearing losing what they do, this creates havoc in this first humor, this first energy. How does this energy affect the body, this first one? Imbalances in this first energy affects movement, causing movement disorders. It affects digestion. It affects sleep. It causes spinning thoughts, so it's not only physical but mental health, and headaches. This imbalance of this first energy can also lead to addiction, including the addiction to work and success. Always needing to, to have success, to have success, to have success. The second energy, this Mkrispa bile energy, when it is imbalanced, it's related to anger, it's related to hostility, and it's related to aggression. High levels of this energy, so high levels, for example, of anger, is created, high levels of bile, of this energy, is created through too much doing, created through competitiveness, constant stressors, and no time for joy. Has anyone ever asked you, do you give yourself enough time for joy? That's not good for your health if you don't. That's a whole different mindset. This imbalance can lead to isolation, judgment of self and others. Anyone here self-judge? No. And physically, listen to this, an imbalance in this second energy leads to body heat, leads to inflammation, and leads to metabolic and endocrine problems. The third energy, the phlegm, bad gen, is related to delusion, confusion, and closed-mindedness. Healthy levels of bad gen allow us to think, the body to slow down, rest, and enjoy time with family and friends. But high levels of it will produce procrastination, lethargy, and inertia. Bad gen, so having good levels of bad gen is actually cold energy, and it balances the hot energy of Mkrispa. When we use the Tibetan medical lens, diagnosis of any disease is achieved through listening, because of course, if most of it is in the mind, the doctor is not only going to test for things, right? It's going to be active, empathetic listening. What is going on in this person's life? As well as an analysis of the tongue, the urine, and the pulse, because that's going to give the doctor information about which of these energies is imbalanced. The main aim of treatment is to rebalance those energies. And to do so, as we've said, we have to address the mind. Meditation is a really big part of Tibetan medicine. Because in meditation, that's where we can really notice those negative thoughts. We can notice where we're not satisfied, where we're pushing. And we can learn to just acknowledge and recognize, be aware, and say that is, rather than oh, that's good, that's bad, that is. From the state of acceptance, then we can figure out what is the best way to move forward. That's interesting. Rather than, I just want to get rid of it. First, there needs to be an acceptance, an awareness, that is, and then figure out how to move forward. Thus, in Tibetan medicine, the first line of treatment first addresses the mental poisons, and it is accompanied by lifestyle and diet. Physical therapies, listen to this, this is really interesting. Physical therapies are only used as a last resort, because this medical model emphasizes the need to treat the root cause first. Now, Tibetan medicine has already contributed to a clear understanding of the cause of MS, because it has been demonstrated through thermodynamics that these three energies that we've been talking about correlate with the three types of myelin lipids. We have three types of myelin. One's called phospholipids, the other one's sphingolipids, and cholesterol. And the three energies correlate with these three. And interesting enough, MS is a disease that has too much Arlum and really, really low bad gym. So too much of that do, and really, really low resting, thinking, spending time with family, relaxing. And exacerbations, it has shown in thermodynamics, is when that second one, that anger one, is extremely high. So the research in Tibetan medicine is actually suggesting that the structures of the myelin lipids, which is what the myelin's made out of, becomes abnormal because of these imbalances. And that those abnormalities of the lipids, because they've now become imbalanced, is what happens first. Then the T cells come in to eat up the abnormal cells. That's actually what T cells are supposed to do. So it's not that the T cells go activated and ballistic and start eating whatever. They're actually going through the body and cleaning abnormal cells, and they've detected that there's abnormal cells in the myelin, so they're going to break through that barrier and get to those abnormal cells. So in Tibetan medicine, the focus for MS is to regenerate those lipids in the myelin so that the T cells don't go in and try to clean them because they're abnormal. And in order to regenerate those myelin, there has to be a balancing again of those energies. And those are balanced through transforming our thoughts, our beliefs, diet, and lifestyle. One more model we're going to look at today: consciousness medicine. Consciousness medicine expands what MindBody medicine has been able to achieve. It does link the mind to the body, but it goes further. Consciousness medicine actually brings quantum physics into the picture. Our biomedicine, what we see in hospitals, is based in Newton physics, which is 400 years old. Quantum physics is from the last 100 years, and it is quirky as anything. It is very hard to understand. In quantum physics, the observer of a study, the observer of the research, influences the results, right? It does some quirky things as you go into quantum physics. In quantum physics, when you get a microscope and you get a stronger microscope and a stronger microscope and a stronger microscope, these things that we saw were cells become energy. We can no longer use Newton physics, which is very mathematical and very logical, when we get to those really, really, microscopic levels of what's happening in the body. At that level, everything is energy and everything is probability. There isn't like, well, this happens, therefore that, there's a lot of things going on. So most biology researchers, most, physics researchers, and most doctors will not really look at quantum physics because it's really difficult to understand. However, when you do bring in quantum physics into the picture, a lot of things that current science cannot explain is understood. Placebo and why, if we think it's going to work, it works, is understood. Distance healing. A lot of other elements that are pretty a mystery to us right now. Why some people heal all of a sudden and others don't, can be explained through quantum physics. In quantum physics, the mind is the matrix. The mind is the basis of everything. It holds everything together. Everything, including our entire world and including our physical body. So consciousness medicine, which is based in quantum physics, disease is a distortion of the mind in our understanding of the world, in our understanding of self. And these distortions, these limiting beliefs that we have, the world is dangerous, I don't have worth, I need to be perfect. These distortions influences our physical expression, influences our cells, and can lead to physical disease. So in consciousness medicine, how do we treat disease? We need to transform the person. The goal in consciousness medicine is not to help somebody gain just enough function to return to their previous lives, right? Which is pretty much what everyone tries at first. They're like, I just want these symptoms away so I can go back to my previous life. In consciousness medicine, this model understands that that previous life, with all its situations, its attitudes, its beliefs, is what formed the cause of the disease. So the goal is to transform the person beyond those situations, attitudes, and beliefs, beyond what created that disease. So with MS, MS is expressing these lifelong beliefs and behaviors about ourselves and the world that have disrupted our connection to ourselves, our connection to joy, and our connection to the outer world. And we first need to work on those causes, the psychological and the spiritual, followed after by lifestyle, by physical interventions, you know, and like Tibetan medicine, the last resort. You know, if you're in a very bad place, like you're having an exacerbation, you want to put in that pharmacology. You want to stop things that are creating more, that are destroying the myelin. But you don't want to just use that or resort to that. That's the thing you use to keep things from getting worse while you're doing your work. Any questions on these four? We looked at biomedicine, mind-body medicine, Tibetan medicine, and conscious medicine.
I love all of it, Eva, right on point.
I really liked it. I think, well, with the first model, it was very clear that by taking medication, people should be very, very clear. It will never, never make them healthy. You know, it will make them not progress, but that's very important to know that you're not curing, you know, with the medication. So I guess everybody knows, but sometimes people believe that it will do more than it's supposed to.
What comes up for me a lot of times when I have people who don't really understand MS, but they'll say like, you know, they'll reference someone like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who allegedly cured, you know, he brought himself back from a, you know, a major
severe spinal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes when people are going on about that, and I just sort of like in the back of my head roll my eyes, I'm just like, well, MS is like this beast. And what if it, I mean, there's a part of me, I guess, that doubts like, oh, well, he, you know.
I also liked, you know, the fact that every single, you know, symptom we have is a cause of something. Everything has a cause. And a lot of people just think, oh, we don't know where MS came from. I don't know where my symptom came from, which is all a lie, because we do know where it came from. If you think about it, we analyze what happened to us, analyze our behavior and what we ate, what we breathed, what happened to us. We do know. So at least that people should understand that every symptom has a cause. Even though we don't know exactly, you know, it's not one thing that caused our disease. It looks like it's a lot of things.
Oh, yes. It's like what is that? The straw that, you know, broke the camel's back. It is a lot of stuff, but we need to understand what is that stuff, right? The more we study, as I said to Richard Bandler, the more you take time to look at what is all my stuff, then when you're designing, you know, literally not just throwing things up against the wall to see what sticks, but designing your treatment protocol, you're making sure, am I addressing all those things? If I know I have alexithymia, if I know I have repressed emotions, or I don't know how to, you know, express emotions, and I know that's a factor, you know, in the body, then I need to make sure that I add that, right? If I know I have adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, you know, I need to look at those things.
Gotcha.
And really look at that. And what we're going to be doing next month is I took a class on consciousness medicine because the teacher, Michelle Fowler, has a 7-step protocol that actually covers everything. And she starts with consciousness, and then she slowly tracks and makes sure, you know, that you're able to see what is my history and what do I need to work through.
Awesome.
Because of this work, I've started studying again. It's like I'm studying right now family constellations, which is really looking at, you know, I just read a book called It Didn't Start With You. And it's really looking at, you know, you getting to MS isn't just because of, you know, decisions you made as a kid. It's family dynamics, right? You come into a family that has alexithymia. You come into a family that has codependence problems or abandonment problems or addiction problems. And so as you're doing your work, you want to look at that family tree to understand what part is mine and what part did I just pick up that's not mine and I need to let go.